Why are INFJs hard on themselves but lenient toward others? This question was asked by CL Stripe. I think it could have been someone else. Apologies if it was someone else. I'm starting to have a bit of a list of questions to address, which is great because it means I have material to work with. So don't hesitate to continue asking questions, always helps me. I changed the angle of the camera today. I'm kind of holding my phone because the sun is so powerful that you wouldn't be able to see me at all otherwise. That's one of the advantages of living in the south of France. But anyway, we'll try and answer that question. Why are INFJs hard on themselves but lenient toward others? And as usual, the first question we want to ask ourselves is, do we agree with this? Do we think that this is a fair representation of what INFJs are like? Again, certainly this is something that we hear. This is something that some INFJs express having difficulties with. So it seems to certainly concern some INFJs. But we want to sort of understand a little bit better what kinds of INFJs are involved in this. What is the degree of prevalence of this particular state of affairs, that kind of thing. So what I would say is that if you refer back to my typology, it's always useful to refer back to my typology of INFJs with the secure, with the compliance, also called the adaptive submissive, with the solipsist, and with the spiritualized. So first of all, we have to consider that the secure INFJs, right? Spiritual is an alternative terms. There are some among you who prefer secure, others who prefer spiritual. So for now, I'll continue using the two terms, and we'll see what happens in the later stages. Secure INFJs are pretty comfortable with themselves. They're not particularly hard on themselves. Okay, and one of the upshots of this is that they're not necessarily going to be the most outwardly ambitious of INFJs, precisely because they're pretty comfortable with themselves. They have well-developed egos, pretty sturdy egos, and they're going to be, if you like, another way to put this is that the spiritual/secure INFJs are the happiest with just being, okay? Whereas more insecure types of INFJs feel like they always have to become. Have to become what they are currently not. And that is, of course, partly the sign of self-esteem issues. But in the very drive to become, you can also achieve things that the person who's very happy with just being might not achieve. So again, that's something to keep in mind. So to be hard on yourself means that you want to become. You're not happy with what you are, and you want to become, okay? So that's going to be pretty common among compliant, adaptive submissive INFJs and solipsistic INFJs. Of course, this is a defense mechanism in part against the relatively low self-esteem. Adaptive submissive INFJs are, I think they are faced with an extra challenge, which is the fundamentally knowing that their behavior, the mode of relating to others is defined by a certain lack of authenticity. And they know that they could be doing more with their authenticity, with their NI, instead of pursuing something that is in many ways a chimera. And that will also cause them to be hard on themselves. Maybe more than average. The solipsist often is hard on himself or hard on herself because they are so NI-focused that they're very defined by NI-perfectionism, and they tend to never quite feel like they have got it completely right. In some sense, they have their objective at a profound level is to solve the riddle of the universe via their pure NI, which is also a reason why they can have a tendency toward panpsychism, namely seeing everything in terms of consciousness. Everything is consciousness, namely everything is their consciousness. And NI sort of becomes merged with the world. which is a very interesting phenomenon that I could look into at some point. So, you know, I had a video recently which was titled "The Ego Ideal of Spiritual INFJs." So again, spiritual INFJs here mean secure INFJs. There's just one category. The category of INFJs who benefited from good enough parenting is one shortcut to kind of to understanding this particular category. And if your ego ideal is not too distant from your ego, where it is located, you're not going to be very hard on yourself. If your ego ideal is like very distant from where your ego is, you're going to be more hard on yourself. But the kind of perverse paradox here is that more insecure kinds of INFJs tend to develop a very demanding ego ideal as a compensation for what they feel themselves to be lacking right now. So the if you like, the psychological pathway here is, well, you know, I don't think of myself much right now. I don't think much of myself, but look at what I would be capable of in the distant future. That's the compensation, okay? The problem is that once you've set up that distant self, then it becomes this yardstick against which you compare yourself, so you make yourself feel even worse because you know that what you've set up for yourself might well be unattainable. So that's essentially the source of this being too hard on yourself kind of phenomenon. Look for it in more insecure kinds of INFJs, adaptive submissive or solipsistic. Now, in terms of why are they lenient on others, I don't think that's the case. I personally have to disagree with this. I think that adaptive submissive INFJs pretend to be lenient toward others because it's a defensive mechanism so that they can belong, but actually they're resentful toward others for their own failings, for the others' failings, but also the projection of the adaptive submissive INFJs' failings onto others. Solipsistic INFJs are very hard on others usually because their whole shtick depends on like rejecting others' viewpoints, the viewpoints of the social world around them. The ones that are going to be lenient toward others, in fact, are going to be the ones that are lenient toward themselves, like the secure INFJs, because they don't feel afraid of the object. So they don't feel like they're going to be threatened by others. They're comfortable with others. So they have no reason to defensively, you know, kind of crucify others, if you like. And the spiritualized essentially has achieved the same thing. So they'll be kind of similar to the spiritual/secure INFJs. No, like for defensive purposes, like I said, the adaptive submissive, by what Freud calls reaction formation. And you should look at reaction formation. It's called reaction formation. Look at this defense mechanism, and you'll understand a lot of the sources, the real sources of the supposed niceness of the adaptive submissive INFJ. It's defensively motivated, and the leniency is often feigned. Often these INFJs are quite judgmental of the failings of others. But they won't necessarily show them. The solipsistic INFJ will be more outspoken about those failings, so they don't have this kind of reaction formation, at least at that level. But certainly they're not lenient toward others. If they were lenient toward others, they would let others in. Because they have to justify not letting others in, they choose not to be lenient. Okay. So I think leniency toward yourself and toward others is actually symmetrical. You see that in spiritual INFJs and spiritualized INFJs. You don't really see that in the solipsistic INFJs and the compliant/adaptive submissive. Okay, so let me know your thoughts if you agree or disagree. And don't forget, I've written 2 full books on the INFJ personality. Latest one is The Infinite Soul, INFJ Life in the Modern World. And it's a woman this time. And she has a sun right in the middle of her face. Isn't that mysterious? Now, if you want to learn about how INFJs can find themselves, meaning, purpose, value, love, laughter in the world today, with all its hostility, without sacrificing their unique identity and authenticity, this is the book to read. And by the way, if you love the book but haven't reviewed it yet, I would benefit immensely from a review. So consider it, please. The link is below. And its prequel, of course, is The Ecstatic Soul. A little bit more used up, as you can see, is a few years old. A New Look at the INFJ Personality. That's a book that looks deeply into the INFJ mind, INFJ consciousness. What is it like to be an INFJ? The 2 books, as you can imagine, go very well together. This one is more focused on the inside of the INFJ mind. The other book The Infinite Soul is about the interaction between this mind and the outside world. A bit more practical, but again, the two books go very well together. And as usual, don't forget, guys, I really rely on your kind donations, your kind support via Patreon. The link is below to my Patreon page. And from anywhere from $3.50 a month, you can support me there, make a massive contribution toward keeping this channel going. And you benefit from access to the community. We're starting to have really interesting discussions there. You can ask me to cover particular topics, interact with me, and also get access to bonus videos every 2 weeks just for patrons, usually in-depth discussions of videos from mainstream YouTubes or my books or both. Okay, so consider it, and I'll talk to you next time, guys. Bye-bye.